All right, folks, it's finally that time. Roster cuts are looming, and the Chicago Bears are just hours away from trimming their squad down to 53 players. The anticipation is high, the debates are endless, and yeah, there's always that one unexpected move that shakes up everything. But before we go live and dive into the chaos of cut day, it's time for the final projection. The last shot at predicting who makes it, who gets stashed, and who's packing their bags. So buckle up. We're going deep. First things first, let's talk about the names that have already been sent packing. Some of these were expected, some not so much, and a few still haven't even been officially confirmed. But based on sources, conversations, and some old-fashioned roster math, here's what we know. Guys like Samori Toure, Royce Freeman, Chris Glazer, Caleb Hayes, and Mark Perry didn't make it. No real shockers there. These are the types of players that often find themselves on the outside, looking in when the roster starts to tighten. But there's also a group like Joel Wilson, who had a pretty decent preseason showing, even leading the team in receptions. That one stings a bit more, not just because he produced on the field, but because he looked like someone who might actually carve out a depth role. The good news? If he clears waivers, the Bears are hoping to bring him back on the practice squad. And then there are the injury designations. 3 players are officially on season-ending injured reserve: Terrell Smith, Shaun Wade, and Deion Hankins. We could still see more names land there, depending on how the final evaluations shake out. Want to watch? Zay Frazier. We'll get to him later, but he's someone who might fall into a more temporary category. Now, based on all of this, the Bears are sitting at around 77 players. So, roughly 24 guys still need to be trimmed to get down to that magic number of 53. And this is where things get interesting. Some of the next cuts are probably obvious to those who've been following closely. Austin Reed is one of them. A solid presence and maybe a locker room guy, but he's not cracking the top 3 at quarterback. J.P. Richardson, Joshua Miles, Ricky Stromberg, Doug Kramer Jr. Again, not exactly surprises. Kramer and McFadden both had their chances, but nothing jumped off the screen. Bill Murray? Same deal. Jamri Chroma, Power Eccles, Carl Jones, Alex Cook, and Tysham Johnson are all likely on the way out too. None of these guys made a strong enough push to break into the depth chart. But here's where it gets complicated: the bubble. This is where fans get loud, debates get heated, and front office decisions can get a little controversial. We're talking about guys like Roscoe Johnson, Travis Homer, and Britton Brown. After DeAndre Swift and Kyle Monangai, the running back room is wide open. Injuries have thrown everything out of whack. Homer, if healthy, might stick as a special teamer. Roscoe? It's a total mystery. He's reportedly dealing with a foot injury, but no one's seen him. Not on the sidelines, not in walkthroughs, not anywhere. There's a growing sense something more might be going on. So, the smart move might be to stash him on short-term injured reserve. That way, he's not subject to waivers, and the team can bring him back after 4 weeks. It's one of the few tricks left for teams trying to hang on to talent without burning a roster spot. Wide receiver is just as chaotic. DJ Moore, Rome Oduns, Zach Coase, and Luther Burden are locked in. After that, it gets murky. Devin Duvernay should be in. He's the likely return specialist, even if he's been dealing with injuries of his own. Then there's Jaden Walker. He might not be a household name, but man, he's made a strong case. Special teams impact, consistent effort, and even some cryptic tweets about earning his spot. You love to see that kind of hunger from a guy flying under the radar. If the Bears go with 6 wideouts, Walker's got a legit shot. At tight end, the projection is 3: Cole Katie, Colston Loveland, and Durham Smythe. In the past, maybe you carry 4, especially if you run a lot of 2 tight end sets. But if everyone's healthy, there's really no need. Plus, you can keep Joel Wilson and Steven Carlson on the practice squad, assuming they clear. Carlson's more of a vet, so he might slide through. Wilson, less likely, especially after showing out in the preseason. But if the Bears pull it off, those 2 become emergency call-up options for game days. Don't forget, practice squad players can be elevated up to 3 times during the regular season without needing a full roster spot. Offensive line has been a major talking point this offseason, and the Bears seem to have found their mix. Braxton Jones is probably your left tackle. No official word yet, but the signs point that way. Joe Thuney, Drew Dalman, Jonah Jackson, and Darnell right round out your starters. Backups? Aussie Trapillo, Ryan Bates, and Luke Newman are in. Newman's had a strong camp and locked down a spot. Theo Benedict is close to a lock too. That brings us to Kieran Amagagi. Look, he hasn't lived up to expectations yet, but it's way too soon to give up on a third-round pick. The tools are there. Development is still possible. A team like Atlanta might be interested in a trade. They've had some tackle injuries, but unless you're getting something decent in return, it makes more sense to hold and develop. Now let's flip to the defense. 10 defensive linemen might sound like overkill, but given the way this team wants to rotate up front, it actually makes sense. Montez Sweat, Deo Odiingbo, Grady Jarrett, Jervin Dexter, and Andrew Billings are your locks. There's been some chatter that Billings might be a scheme mismatch, but come on, he's your best run stuffer. Cutting him would be baffling. Shamar Turner hasn't had much camp action, but he's a rookie with upside. He's in. Chris Williams, after a strong preseason, edges out guys like Zach Pickens and Jonathan Ford. Those two could land on the practice squad if they clear. Austin Booker is another wild card. He's banged up and could go on short-term IR, giving the team some flexibility. The real drama is at edge. Daniel Hardy, Tano Pacino, and Dominique Robinson are all fighting for what might be one or two spots. Hardy has special teams value and made plays in the final preseason game. Tano is a Dennis Allen guy and brings veteran savvy. Robinson? He started out training camp strong, but injuries and a quiet final game might have cost him. If the team keeps 5 defensive ends, Robinson could be the odd man out. Not a move everyone will agree with, but it's the kind of decision that comes down to performance, availability, and system fit. Linebacker is a little more stable. 5 guys are making it. TJ Edwards, Tremaine Edmonds, Noah Sewell, Ruben Hippolyte, and Ian Agagbeam. No surprises there. No need to carry more, no room to carry less. It's a clean 5-man unit with defined roles and backups. But before we do, one more piece of the puzzle, the practice squad. This is where the Bears get creative. Austin Reed sticks around. He's a QB, he's a vibes guy, and you never know when you'll need that emergency call-up. Ian Wheeler and Britton Brown are back there too. Brown ran hard in preseason. Wheeler showed flashes. Maurice Alexander is your return backup. If something happens to Duvernay, Alexander's the next man up. Tyler Scott is a gamble. Someone might claim him, but if not, he's a valuable project player. Joel Wilson and Steven Carlson are back at tight end. Doug Kramer and Jordan McFadden give you interior offensive line depth. Zach Pickens and Jonathan Ford offer some muscle on the defensive line. Dominic Robinson, if he clears waivers, you keep developing him. Power Eccles and Carl Jones round out your linebackers. Alex Cook is your extra safety, and Trey Flowers, the veteran corner, give you a little more depth in a thin spot, especially with Jalen still recovering and Terrell Smith done for the year. What makes this particular Bears roster projection so fascinating is not just who made it and who didn't, but the level of uncertainty still hanging over key spots. You can feel it in the running back room, especially. DeAndre Swift is locked in as the lead back, and Kyle Monangai impressed enough to secure a place behind him. But beyond those two, it's a guessing game. Travis Homer brings special teams value, which can often be the difference between staying or going. But even then, his health status complicates things. If he's not 100%, are the Bears really going to carry him on the active roster instead of opening that slot for someone healthier or more versatile? That brings us right back to Roscoe Johnson. It's wild to think about how fast things have changed for him. This was a guy expected to have a real role this year, maybe even push Swift for touches, and now we're not even sure if he's practicing. The Bears have been tight-lipped about his injury, calling it a foot issue, but the lack of visibility is what's raising eyebrows. He hasn't been spotted on the sidelines, hasn't appeared in the background of clips or photos. Nothing. For a guy that many pegged as a breakout candidate, the silence is deafening. The most realistic path is the short-term IR designation. That protects him from waivers, gives him a few weeks to get right, and opens a spot for someone like Britton Brown, who showed he can run with power during preseason. But still, For a team looking to lean on the run game, the instability in that position group is far from ideal. Now back to the wide receiver room, and this is where things really highlight the shifting identity of the team. You've got your high-end talent in DJ Moore and Rome Odunze. Moore is the proven veteran, the alpha in the room, while Odunze, the rookie, has already shown flashes that make it clear why the Bears used such a high pick on him. Zach Coase and Luther Burden round out the core. Burden's route running has been clean, and he's got a knack for finding the soft spots in coverage. Zach Coase brings that veteran presence with just enough juice after the catch to keep defenses honest. But then you look at the bottom of the depth chart, and it's all about special teams and versatility. Davernay, when healthy, is a lock as the return man. That's not up for debate. The question was always whether the Bears would go with 5 wideouts or stretch it to 6. Jaden Walker forced their hand. The guy's been grinding. He may not have the highlight reel catches or the big-name pedigree, but he did all the little things. His special teams reps, his energy, even his attitude, it all translated into a roster-worthy performance. That tweet he sent out, "Nothing promised, everything earned," really tells the story. This is a guy who knows the odds were against him, who remembers not getting a combine invite, and yet found a way to prove himself. If you're building a culture, those are the types of guys you keep around. Tight end, as simple as it seems, might be one of the more overlooked stories. Cole Kmet is your starter, no question. Colston Loveland and Durham Smythe round out the trio. It's a clean group. No need to overcomplicate it. Some fans wanted 4, and earlier in the offseason that looked plausible, especially with how often Ben Johnson likes 2 tight end sets. But if everyone's healthy, you just don't need that extra guy eating up a spot. That said, Joel Wilson and Steven Carlson staying close on the practice squad gives the Bears options. If an injury pops up, or if matchups call for heavier sets, they can bring one up for a few weeks without burning a full-time spot. It's smart roster mechanics. The offensive line group this year might be the most balanced we've seen in Chicago in a while. There's experience, depth, and finally some legitimate upside. Braxton Jones has continued to grow. If he does lock down that left tackle job, it gives the unit a major boost. Joe Thuney, a rock-solid guard, brings both toughness and smarts. Drew Dalman is steady at center. Jonah Jackson gives you some push inside, and Darnell Wright is set to be a monster on the right edge. That's your starting 5, and it's a group that can protect Caleb Williams and open lanes for Swift. The backups are nothing to sneeze at either. Aussie Trapillo made the leap. Ryan Bates is a true utility lineman. Luke Newman showed during camp that he belongs. Theo Benedict had a couple rough snaps in the preseason, but his body of work during practice and scrimmages holds weight. That brings us to Kieran Amagagi, who's still a bit of a project. But again, third-round picks don't get cut after 1 year unless something major has gone wrong, and that's not the case here. The physical tools are still there. The Bears believe in his long-term development. Could he be traded? Sure. Atlanta's been poking around after losing some linemen. But unless the return makes sense, there's more value in keeping and molding him than there is in flipping him for a conditional 6th. Switching to the defensive front, this is where you start to see the vision of the coaching staff. The Bears are clearly aiming for a deep and versatile defensive line rotation. Keeping 10 linemen might feel like a luxury, but the modern NFL is all about depth up front. Montez Sweat leads the edge group. Dayo Odiingbo brings speed and inside-out flexibility. Grady Jarrett, still a tone setter, will be key inside. Jervin Dexter has taken a step forward. Andrew Billings is that old-school run stuffer you just can't afford to cut. Despite some murmurs about him being a scheme mismatch, the tape tells you he's doing the dirty work no one else on the line can match. Every move here tells a story. Some are about the present. Others are about the future. And a few are just about giving a guy one more chance to prove he belongs. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on our Chicago Bears. And don't be shy. Drop your thoughts on the news in the comments below. Whispers have begun circulating through the sports world after Joe Buck reportedly made disparaging remarks about the Chicago Bears, igniting a storm of speculation about his motivations and the possible repercussions. According to sources close to the situation, Buck, known for his sharp commentary and high-profile broadcasting career, allegedly criticized the team's recent performance, questioning the leadership, strategy, and consistency that have long defined the franchise. While some insiders suggest that these comments were made in a private setting, others claim that snippets may have leaked, fueling fan outrage and media frenzy. Rumors suggest that Buck's criticism could stem from frustrations over questionable play calling, roster management, or a perceived lack of ambition within the Bears organization. Fans and pundits alike have taken to social media, dissecting every word and trying to decipher the context in which these statements were made, while betting forums and fan pages buzz with speculation. The timing of Buck's alleged remarks coincides with a critical stretch in the Bears season, which has already seen fluctuating results, raising questions about the team's ability to recover from both on-field struggles and off-field controversies. Industry insiders hint that these comments might influence how future broadcasts handle Bears games, and whether Buck could face backlash from network executives, fellow commentators, or even the organization itself. Analysts are debating whether this incident reflects a genuine critique or a strategic maneuver designed to spark conversation and increase viewership, while supporters of the Bears argue that such commentary only fuels unnecessary tension. Meanwhile, the narrative continues to evolve, with whispers suggesting that Buck's words were not entirely disparaging, but perhaps more of a candid observation, though the damage to public perception may already be underway, leaving fans, journalists, and commentators alike eagerly awaiting a response from both Joe Buck and the Chicago Bears front office regarding this unfolding saga. The repercussions of Joe Buck's alleged comments about the Chicago Bears appear to be rippling far beyond initial reactions, as discussions across sports networks and online forums suggest a brewing tension between the media figure and one of the NFL's most storied franchises. Although Buck has historically been celebrated for his articulate and often charismatic sports commentary, insiders suggest that this incident could mark a rare moment of perceived bias or contentiousness in his career, potentially prompting internal debates within broadcasting networks about the line between opinion and professional discretion. Observers speculate whether these remarks were influenced by long-standing fan criticism, pressure from competing media personalities, or even personal assessments of the Bears' organizational choices, which have been scrutinized for years regarding coaching decisions, draft selections, and management strategies. The timing of the statements, during a period when the Bears are striving to maintain relevance in a competitive league, adds fuel to the speculation that Buck may have been leveraging his platform to highlight what he perceives as weaknesses, perhaps to initiate conversation or drive viewership for broadcasts. Rumors suggest that executives at the network could be evaluating whether to address the situation publicly or attempt to mediate privately, particularly given Buck's influential status and the potential fallout among a passionate fan base. Meanwhile, sports analysts are dissecting the Bears' recent performances with renewed intensity, connecting on-field missteps to the critiques attributed to Buck, and pondering how these discussions might affect team morale. Fans have launched heated debates across social media platforms, with some defending the Bears' resilience and others echoing Buck's pointed observations, creating an environment in which speculation thrives. Industry commentators are also noting that such moments of public criticism can catalyze broader conversations about accountability, leadership, and the evolving role of sports commentators in shaping perceptions of professional teams, all while the Bears attempt to navigate the narrative and maintain focus on upcoming games. Whether Buck's remarks will ultimately influence the team's trajectory or simply fade into the ongoing media noise remains uncertain, but the buzz surrounding the story continues to dominate the sports conversation, keeping fans and pundits on edge as they anticipate further developments. Speculation surrounding Joe Buck's alleged critique of the Chicago Bears has intensified as insiders reveal additional context, suggesting that the remarks were neither entirely spontaneous nor without cause, though the precise motivations remain a subject of intense debate. According to sources who claim familiarity with Buck's recent commentary sessions, the statements may have emerged during a candid off-air discussion in which he reflected on the Bears' struggles, particularly their defensive inconsistencies and offensive inefficiencies, which have drawn widespread attention from analysts and fans alike. Rumors hint that Buck's critiques could also involve a deeper frustration with organizational strategy, including decisions surrounding draft picks, trade negotiations, and coaching leadership, aspects of a team that have historically drawn both criticism and admiration in varying measures. Fans speculate about whether Buck's remarks might have been amplified or misinterpreted by media outlets seeking sensational stories, with some believing that his words were taken out of context, while others argue that the comments reflect an unfiltered reality that the Bears management may not wish to confront publicly. This swirling controversy has also sparked a debate regarding the role of broadcasters in balancing objective analysis with personal opinion, with many suggesting that Buck's prominence amplifies every word, turning routine commentary into viral speculation. Meanwhile, insiders claim that the Bears' locker room and executive staff are reportedly aware of the remarks, though they have yet to issue a formal response, creating a vacuum that further fuels rumor and conjecture. The interplay between Buck's statements and the public's perception of the Bears has led to heightened scrutiny of every game, decision, and media appearance, with fans reading into subtle cues and analysts attempting to assess the possible impact on player performance and team dynamics. Betting lines, fantasy projections, and fan sentiment are all reportedly being influenced by the ongoing buzz, as the story continues to evolve across multiple platforms, and the line between criticism, rumor, and legitimate concern becomes increasingly blurred in a saga that shows no signs of abating in the near future. This complex web of speculation, interpretation, and fan reaction underscores how a single comment, attributed to a high-profile figure like Joe Buck, can catalyze widespread discussion and reshape perceptions of an entire franchise in real time, creating a tense, electrified atmosphere within the sports community. Amid growing speculation about Joe Buck's reported negative comments regarding the Chicago Bears, sports commentators and insiders have begun connecting the dots between his alleged critique and broader narratives about team performance, leadership, and public perception. Sources suggest that Buck's statements might be tied not only to the Bears' on-field struggles, but also to the perceived direction, or lack thereof, within the organization, raising questions about coaching philosophy, player development, and long-term planning. Rumors circulating on fan forums and social media platforms indicate that Buck may have been responding to repeated criticisms from both casual and professional observers of the Bears, amplifying existing concerns about defensive lapses, offensive stagnation, and inconsistent quarterback play. The intensity of the conversation has sparked debate among analysts regarding whether Buck's words are a reflection of objective insight or a provocative tactic to stimulate public discourse, with many noting that such commentary often carries unintended consequences, including heightened scrutiny of team operations and amplified pressure on players and staff. Behind the scenes, network executives and production teams are reportedly monitoring the fallout, assessing whether additional commentary, clarification, or formal statements might be necessary to manage public perception and maintain credibility. Fan reactions have ranged from defensive support for the Bears to vocal agreement with Buck's critique, creating a fragmented landscape in which rumors, opinions, and speculation intermingle, generating endless debate and coverage. The timing of these remarks, coinciding with a period of heightened competition within the league, adds another layer of intrigue, as sports journalists attempt to parse the significance of the criticism in relation to upcoming games, playoff prospects, and player morale. Analysts are also examining whether Buck's comments could influence the narrative surrounding team decisions, such as player trades, draft strategies, and coaching adjustments, suggesting that even subtle remarks by prominent commentators can ripple outward to affect organizational choices. This evolving situation has transformed what might have been a fleeting comment into a full-blown media storyline, illustrating how the interplay between high-profile personalities, team performance, and fan sentiment can drive continuous conversation, speculation, and debate across the sports world, all centered on the perceived tension between Joe Buck and the Chicago Bears. As rumors surrounding Joe Buck's alleged criticism of the Chicago Bears continue to spread, industry observers are now speculating about potential long-term consequences, both for Buck himself and for the perception of the team in the eyes of the public. Sources close to the situation suggest that the remarks, whether intentionally provocative or candidly critical, have generated a ripple effect that has reached players, coaching staff, and organizational executives, prompting private discussions about media relations, communication strategy, and brand image. Sports analysts argue that Buck's influence, stemming from decades of high-profile broadcasting experience, means that even offhand remarks can have substantial implications, affecting how fans interpret team performance, how sponsors view the franchise, and how rival teams perceive vulnerabilities. Some insiders posit that Buck's statements could lead to subtle shifts in coverage, influencing commentary, game analysis, and public narratives about the Bears in ways that extend beyond a single broadcast or social media post. Fans are actively engaged in dissecting the nuances of every public and private comment, while sports talk shows feature debates about the potential motivations behind Buck's remarks, including personal opinions, historical rivalry context, or a desire to spark conversation and engagement. Rumors suggest that the Bears organization may be weighing their options regarding a formal response, strategic silence, or measured engagement with the media, all while balancing the need to maintain team focus and morale amid ongoing speculation. Meanwhile, betting markets, fantasy sports participants, and fan communities are reacting to the buzz, adjusting predictions and forming opinions based on perceived implications of Buck's critique. Analysts note that this situation illustrates the broader tension between media figures and professional teams, highlighting how comments, whether minor or major, can cascade into complex narratives that touch on culture, performance, and public perception. Ultimately, as the story unfolds, the interplay between Joe Buck's influence, fan engagement, and the Bears' organizational response continues to drive an intricate web of rumor, speculation, and anticipation that dominates conversations across media platforms, leaving observers eager to see whether clarification, escalation, or resolution will emerge from the ongoing intrigue surrounding one of the NFL's most discussed teams and one of sports broadcasting's most recognizable voices. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay updated with exclusive news about our Chicago Bears, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that like button. We can't wait to hear your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next video.